Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Sorry, that was a song from Final Fantasy VII. But hey, everybody, happy Sunday. Good to see all of you here. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I'm your host, James Fauntleroy. Welcome. Come on in, have a seat, sit on down. This is going to be an introduction to a new book. Anywho, the Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead, subscribe there. Also part of Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can see me there typically on Sundays and Thursdays. So if you guys would like to, you guys can go ahead and follow us over there. If you guys have not already, you guys can also subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com, so you guys can be aware of email notifications so that you can get notice when I am live, upload clips, or write articles, so you guys can go ahead there. Also, just to let you guys know, this is going to be a reading, so I will be reading throughout. But because this is the introduction and because we're live, I am going to say hello to the people in the chat really quick first, and then we'll get into the reading. So just want to say a quick hello to the rest of you. We have CBC Voter coming in saying happy Sunday at JB. Good to see you. We have Miguel coming in saying peace. We have Venetia David. Venetia? Did I say it correctly? Was it Venetia or Venetia? My apologies if I'm incorrect. But happy Sunday to you. Good to see you all up in here. We have Sarah coming in saying, looking sharp. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we have Sebastiano also in the chat saying, hello. Hello. Is it me you're looking for? Oh, I did say it correctly. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. All right. So, hello to everybody that's watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rockfin, and Rumble. Let's get into this reading, shall we? So, as you guys have probably read from the title, I've been basically kind of preface, everybody by saying I was probably going to pick up one of these books, but this is what I'm doing. I am reading The Will to Change Men, Masculinity, and Love by Bell Hooks. This is going to be a very interesting one because a lot of people seem to think that a book like this just goes strictly on social issues. But being the type of thinker that I am, that you guys know who I am, I'm going to link this to class too. Because identity is linked to class. And I will prove that till the cows come home. So this is the book, right? So we're going to be talking about this book. Now, I've seen this book being spoken about and mentioned in reference to a lot, especially in a lot of social commentary, video essays, especially video essays from people on the left, especially. So when it comes to books like this, I think this is going to be very important. And it's not just important as, because a lot of people will say, well, isn't that a feminist book? And there's a difference. See, there's the white feminist, and then there's the black feminist, right? And there is the kind of almost like there's still a racial hierarchy within white feminism that tends to still keep out the racial aspects of it. And then when you find out, and this is actually out of Pew Research, that black women make 70 cents on a dollar for every dollar that white men make, then this, when it goes to identity and class intersecting, and then white women actually realizing that they might be on the hierarchy level below white men, but they're still above black people. And so this is really her talking about men, masculinity, and love. And it feels like at the beginning, just at the beginning, that it's a love letter written to men from a woman's perspective, from a Black woman's perspective. And then the intricacies of how capitalism and patriarchy work into that. This is going to be really interesting. So I'm going to read the preface and then the first part of chapter 1, and then we're off to the races. So, the will to change starts off with a couple of things spoken of by some prolific writers. But the preface talks about, it says, about men. Let's get into it, shall we? When Phyllis Chesler's book About Men was first published more than 10 years ago, I was excited. At last, I thought then, a feminist thinker will explain the mystery. Men. Back then, I never shared with anyone the feelings I had about men. I had not been able to confess that not only did I not understand men, I feared them. Chesler, with her usual take no prisoners daring, I was certain would not simply name this fear, explain it. She would do much more. She would make men real to me. Men would become people I could talk to, work with, love. Her book was disappointing, filled with quotes from numerous sources, newspaper clippings of male violence. It offered bits and pieces of information. There was little or no explanation, no interpretation. From that time on, I began to think that women were afraid to speak openly about men, afraid to explore deeply our connections to them. What we have witnessed as daughters, sisters, grandmothers, mothers, aunts, lovers, occasional sex objects, and afraid to even acknowledge our ignorance. How much we really do not know about men. All that we do know intensifies our sense of fear and threat, and certainly to know men only in relation to male violence, to the violence inflicted upon women and children, is a partial, inadequate knowing. Nowadays, I am amazed at women who advocate feminist politics and have so little to say about men and masculinity. Within the early writings of radical feminism, anger, rage, and even hatred of men was voiced. Yet there was no meaningful attempt to offer ways to resolve these feelings, to imagine a culture of reconciliation where women and men might meet and find common ground. Militant feminism gave women permission to unleash their rage and hatred at men, but it did not allow us to talk about what it meant to love men in patriarchal culture, to know how we could express that love without fear of exploitation and oppression. Before her death, Barbara Deming was among those rare outspoken feminist thinkers who wanted to create a space for women to talk openly about our feelings about men, articulating her concern that the wellspring of female fury at men was making it impossible for women to express any other feelings than their sense that men are hopeless. She stated, "It scares me that more and more women are coming to feel this way, to feel that men as an entire gender are hopeless." Deming did not feel that men were incapable of change, of moving away from male domination, but she did feel that it was necessary for women to speak the truth about how we think about men. I believe that the only way we can get where we have to go is by never refusing to face the truth of our feelings as they rise up in us, even when we wish it were not the truth. So we have to admit the truth that we sometimes wish our own fathers, sons, brothers, lovers were not there. But this truth exists alongside another truth, the truth that this wish causes us anguish. While some women active in the feminist movement felt anguish about our collective inability to convert masses of men to feminist thinking, many women simply felt that feminism gave them permission to be indifferent to men, to turn away from male needs. When contemporary feminism was at its most intense, many women insisted that they were wary of giving energy to men, that they wanted to place women at the center of all feminist discussions. Feminist thinkers like myself, who wanted to include men in the discussion, were usually labeled male identified and dismissed. We were sleeping with the enemy. We were feminists who could not be trusted because we cared about the fate of men. We were the feminists who did not believe in female superiority any more than we believed in male superiority. This is the point. Because I think one of the issues that happens, especially with a lot of people who are of marginalized groups, will get to the point where they feel like instead of having equity and equality, they want dominance in place of it. So it's just like you have some feminists who want female superiority instead of equity and equality. It's the same thing where you have some Black people that want Black superiority instead of equity and equality in a racial sense. And so I think this is one of the issues that we have to contend with. It's just like how Zionism wants a Zionist superiority. Technically, they want a Jewish superiority, but not all Jewish people are Zionists. So a lot of them don't feel that same exact way. But then you may also have some people who are radical within their Christianity or Muslim faiths that also believe in Christian superiority or Muslim superiority, Jewish superiority, Hindu superiority, things like that, right? And so the goal is to have equity and equality, not superiority. And some people may get caught up in that because they are part of a marginalized group and think, well, we should just be the ones ruling over everybody instead. This reminds me of I think they call themselves the Black Hebrews, the Black Israelites. And I remember years ago talking to one of them, and they were basically talking bad about white people. And it wasn't as if they were talking about white people basically saying, well, look at all the things that white people did. They were using it as a cudgel to say that we should be over white people instead of actually having equity and equality. They wanted dominance. I don't know what they believe now. I don't want to speak for them. But at the time when I spoke to them, it was about dominance over white people instead of having true equity and equality, and basically taking away the colonial construct of race. Did that make any sense? So it kind of feels like that here, that Bell Hooks was speaking about how she wanted equity and equality among genders, not a superiority of one gender over the other. Because that's what capitalism also thrives off of. Now, let's continue. As the feminist movement progressed, the fact became evident that sexism and sexist exploitation and oppression would not change unless men were deeply engaged in feminist resistance. Yet most women were still expressing no genuine interest in highlighting discussions of maleness. Acknowledging that there needed to be more feminist focus on men did not lead to the production of a body of writing by women about men. The lack of such writing intensifies my sense that women cannot fully talk about men because we have been so well socialized in patriarchal culture to be silent on the subject of men. But more than silence, we have been socialized to be the keepers of grave and serious secrets, especially those that could reveal the everyday strategies of male domination, how male power is enacted, and maintain in our private lives. Indeed, even the radical feminist labeling of all men as oppressors and all women as victims was a way to deflect attention away from the reality of men and our ignorance about them. Ooh, it's getting deep, isn't it? To simply label them as oppressors and dismiss them meant we never had to give voice to the gaps in our understanding or talk about maleness in complex ways. There's a conversation that needs to happen here. That sentence was bars. I said it before, I say it again. Women aren't the only victims of patriarchy. Men are too. The tea is getting hot. Let's continue. It says we did not have to talk about the ways our fear of men distorted our perspectives and blocked our understanding. Hating men was just another way to not take men and masculinity seriously. It was simply easier for feminist women to talk about challenging and changing patriarchy than it was for us to talk about men. What we knew and did not know about the ways we wanted men to change. Better to just express our desire to have men disappear than to see them dead and gone. Oh, 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 we haven't even reached chapter 1 yet. Oh, baby, this is a good one. Let's continue. Eloquently, Barbara Deming expresses this longing when she writes about her father's death. Years ago now, I was on a weekend in the country when he had been working outside with the pick and a shovel, making a new garden plot. He had a heart attack and fallen there in loose dirt. We called the rescue squad, and they were trying to bring him back to life, but couldn't. I was half lying on the ground next to him with my arms around his body. I realized that this was the first time in my life that I had felt able to really touch my father's body. I was holding hard to it with my love and with my grief. And my grief was partly that my father, whom I loved, was dying, but it was also that I knew already that his death would allow me to feel freer. I was mourning that this had to be so. It's a grief that is hard for me to speak of. That the only time I would feel free to touch him without feeling threatened by his power over me was when he lay dead. It's unbearable to me. And I think there can hardly be a woman who hasn't felt a comparable grief. So it's an oversimplification to speak the truth that we sometimes wish men dead, unless we also speak the truth, which is perhaps even harder to face as we try to find our own powers to be our own women. The truth is that this wish is unbearable to us. It renders us. As a young woman in my 20s who had not yet found her own powers, I often wished the men in my life would die. My longing for my father's death began in childhood. It was a way I responded to his rage, his violence. I used to dream him gone, dead and gone. Death was the only way out of fear evoked by the proclamation, "Wait until your father gets home." The threat of punishment was so intense, his power over us so real, lying in my girlhood bed waiting to hear the hard anger in his voice, the invasive sound of his commands. I used to think, if only he would die, we could live. Later, as a grown woman waiting for the man of my life to come home, the man who was more often than not a caring partner, but who was sometimes erupted into violent fits of rage, I used to think maybe he will have an accident and die. Maybe he will not come home and I will be free and able to live. Women and children all over the world want men to die so that they can live. Steve, this is the most painful truth of male domination, that men wield patriarchal power in a daily life in ways that are awesomely life-threatening, that women and children cower in fear in various states of powerlessness, believing that the only way out of their suffering, their only hope, is for men to die, for the patriarchal father to not come home. Women and female and male children dominated by men have wanted them dead because they believe that these men are not willing to change. They believe that men who are not dominators will not protect them. They believe that men are hopeless. When I left home and went away to college, if I called home and my father answered, I hung up. I had nothing to say to him. I had no words to communicate to the dad who did not listen, who did not seem to care, who did not speak words of tenderness or love. I had no need for the patriarchal dad. And feminism had taught me that I could forget about him, turn away from him. In turning away from my dad, I turned away from a part of myself. It is a fiction of false feminism that we women can find our power in a world without men, in a world where we deny our connections to men. We claim our power fully only when we can speak the truth that we need men in our lives, that men are in our lives whether we want them to be or not, that we need men to challenge patriarchy, that we need men to change. While feminist thinking enabled me to reach beyond the boundaries set by patriarchy, it was this search for wholeness, for self-recovery, that led me back to my dad. My reconciliation with my father began with my recognition that I wanted and needed his love. That if I could not have his love, then at least I needed to heal the wound in my heart his violence had created. I needed to talk with him, to tell him my truth, to hold him close and let him know he mattered. Nowadays, when I call home, I revel in the sound of my father's voice, his southern speech familiar and broken in all the right places. I want to hear his voice forever. I don't want him to die. This dad, whom I can hold in my arms, who receives my love and loves me back. Understanding him, I understand myself better. To claim my power as a woman, I have to claim him. We belong together. The will to change, men, masculinity, and love, is about our need to live in a world where women and men can belong together. Looking at all the reasons patriarchy has maintained its power over men in their lives, urges us to reclaim feminism for men, showing why feminist thinking and practices are the only way we can truly address the crisis of masculinity today. And these chapters, I repeat many points so that each chapter alone will convey the most significant ideas of the whole. Men cannot change if there are no blueprints to change for change. Men cannot love if they are not taught the art of loving. It is not true that men are unwilling to change. It is true that many men are afraid to change. It is true that masses of men have not begun to look at the ways that patriarchy keeps them from knowing themselves, from being in touch with their feelings, from loving. To know love, men must be able to let go the will to dominate. They must be able to choose life over death. They must be willing to change. That was the preface. How good was that? And I'm going to say this before. I said it before and I say it again. Look, If we men truly want to change our system, we also have to realize the marginalized groups that are among us, namely women and other marginalized groups. And by women, I'm also talking about trans women too. Look, y'all coming into this channel, some of y'all may not know me. Hello, my name is Jaybefaunt, James Fauntleroy. So good to see you. And I will also advocate for all marginalized groups. As long as those marginalized groups don't have any damage to us or take away any of our freedoms, I'm going to advocate for them too. So that's one of the reasons why I have this channel. And this is one of the reasons why you probably clicked on this video to hear this reading. So welcome. Just so take a sip of tea. Let's start off in chapter 1, baby. It's about to get good. And y'all doing some talking. All right. This is good. Chapter 1. Wanted. Men who love. This is about to get good. Every female wants to be loved by a male. Every woman wants to love and be loved by the males in her life, whether gay or straight, bisexual or celibate. She wants to feel the love of father, grandfather, uncle, brother, or male friend. If she is heterosexual, she wants the love of a male partner. We live in a culture where emotionally starved, deprived females are desperately seeking male love. Our collective hunger is so intense it renders us, yet we dare not speak it for fear we will be mocked, pitied, shamed. To speak our hunger for male love would demand that we name the intensity of our lack and our loss. The male bashing that was so intense when contemporary feminism first surfaced more than 30 years ago was in part the rageful cover-up of the shame women felt, not because men refused to share their power, but because we could not seduce, cajole, or entice men to share their emotions, to love us. By claiming that they wanted the power men had, man-hating feminists, who are by no means the majority, covertly proclaimed that they too wanted to be rewarded for being out of touch with their feelings, for being unable to love. This is something I think that we also have to juxtapose with, like, for instance, there's a lot of Black people that really want to be in the sphere of Black supremacy so that they can be like the white supremacists. And a lot of Black people, they will continuously say they basically want to have the power that white people have. They just want to dominate over other people. And they don't want equality and equity and to get rid of the structure of one group over another. They just want to be the person on top. Same thing here. And so this is the issue that I was talking about in the preface, is a lot of times those of us in marginalized groups want to be the dominant person instead of getting rid of the hierarchy altogether. And I think that's the point. It's not, we need to get rid of the want to dominate and replace it with the want to get rid of the hierarchies, to get rid of the domination completely. It says, by claiming that they wanted the power that men had, man-hating feminists who were covertly proclaimed that they wanted to be rewarded for being out of touch with their feelings. So they basically wanted to be the men, in a sense, right? Men in patriarchal culture responded to feminist demand for greater equality in the work world and in the sexual world by making room, by sharing the spheres of power. The place where most men refuse to change, believe themselves unable to change, was in their emotional lives. Not even for the love and respect of liberated women were men willing to come to the table of love as equal partners ready to share the feast. No one hungers for male love more than the little girl or boy who rightfully needs and seeks love from dad. He may be absent, dead, present in body, yet emotionally not there. But the girl or boy hungers to be acknowledged, recognized, respected, and cared for. This is another point. How many of us had dads in our lives, but it was like as if he wasn't there? There's a lot of you out there who had a father who it was like he was there, but he wasn't there. He paid the bills, went to your mom's room, you spent some time with them. You knew him, but you didn't really know. How many of you have experienced that? Where is this disconnect? How many elderly men out there that are in old folks' homes that don't really get visited much by their children? The older women do. The moms do, for the most part. But the old men, the fathers, the grandfathers, the uncles, are they being visited? Interesting, right? Presence. All around our nation, billboards carry this message. Each night, millions of kids go to sleep starving for attention from their dads. Because patriarchal culture has already taught girls and boys that dad's love is more valuable than mother's love, it is unlikely that maternal affection will heal the lack of fatherly love. No wonder that these girls and boys grow up angry with men, angry that they have been denied the love they needed to feel whole, worthy, accepted. Heterosexual girls and homosexual boys can and do become the women and men who make romantic bonds the place where they quest to find and know male love. Look, daddy issues. Let's put it out there. Daddy issues. But that quest is rarely satisfied. Usually rage, grief, and unrelenting disappointment lead hoping to be touched and healed by male love. I'm sorry. Usually rage, grief, and unrelenting disappointment lead women and men to close off the part of themselves that was hoping to be touched and healed by male love. They learn then to settle for whatever positive attention men are able to give. They learn to overvalue it. They learn to pretend that that is love. They learn how to speak the truth about men in love. They learn how not to speak the truth about men in love. They learn to live the lie. How many people are abused by men and they continuously make excuses for it because it's almost like at least they're getting some type of attention, even if it's negative? And abuse, I'm not just talking about physical, I'm talking about emotional and verbal. Because just because he doesn't put his hands on you doesn't mean he's still not abusing you. Recognize that's also not love. As a child, I hungered for the love of my dad. I wanted him to notice me, to give me his attention and affection. When I could not get him to notice me by being good and dutiful, I was willing to risk punishment to be bad enough to catch his gaze, to hold it, and to bear the weight of his heavy hand. I longed for those hands to hold, shelter, and protect me, to touch me with tenderness and care. But I accepted that this would never be. I knew at age 5 that those hands would acknowledge me only when they were bringing me pain, that if I could accept the pain and hold it close to it, I could be daddy's girl. I could make him proud. I am not alone. So many of us have felt that we could win male love by showing we were willing to bear the pain, that we were willing to live our lives affirming that the maleness deemed truly manly because it withholds, withdraws, refuses is the maleness we desire. We learn to love men more because they will not love us. If they dare to love us in the patriarchal culture, they would cease to be real men. Ooh-wee. Straight men, if you truly dare to truly love the woman in your life and to share that love and respect and honor, what do they call you? They call you simps, right? Oh, you're a simp. What do a lot of these guys who are, especially in the manosphere, right? What do they say? Oh, if you really want a woman to be around you, if you really want a woman to be with you, then you have to cut yourself off. You have to put a distance there so that she'll want you more. This is the whole thing that women all want assholes type of ideology, when in reality, not really. No, it's not. And so that's one of the things I think that needs to be honed in on. And when a man calls you a simp for truly loving the woman in your life, that really means that you're not manly because you're actually being loving. When you think about it, it's like, what? Patriarchy is a system that wants to mechanize men so that this no longer works. This no longer exists. And patriarchy is also a tool of capitalism so that we continuously keep that motor running. Mm-mm-mm. In her loving memoir, In the Country of Men, Jan Waldron describes a similar longing. She confesses that the kind of father I ached for, I have never seen except in glimpses I have embellished with wishful imaginings. Contrasting the loving fathers we long for with the fathers we have, she expresses the hunger. Dad, it is a vow against all odds in the face of countless examples to the contrary. Dad, it doesn't have the utilitarian effect of mum or ma. It's still spoken as a ballad refrain. It is a pledge that originates in the heart and fights for life amid the carnage of present. Obvious history to the contrary and excruciatingly scant follow through. Mother love is a plenty and apparent. We complain because we have too much of it. The love of a father is an uncommon gem to be hunted, burnished, and hoarded. The value goes up because of its scarcity. In our culture, we say very little about the longing for father love. Rather than bringing us great wisdom about the nature of men and love, reformist feminists focus on male power, reinforce the notion that somehow males are powerful and had it all. Feminist writing did not tell us about the deep inner misery of men. It did not tell us the terrible terror that gnaws at the soul when one cannot love. Women who envied men in their hard-heartedness were not about to tell us the depth of male suffering. And so it has taken more than 30 years for the voices of visionary feminists to be heard, telling the world the truth about men and love. Barbara Deming hinted at those truths. I think the reason that men are so very violent is that they know deep in themselves that they're acting out a lie. And so they're furious at being caught up in the lie. But they don't know how to break it. They're in a rage because they're acting out a lie, which means that in some deep part of themselves, they want to be delivered from it. They're homesick for the truth. Omar Mateen was a closeted gay man that chose to come to Orlando and murder 49 people in the Pulse nightclub, which is only 8 minutes away from me. He chose violence because he was afraid of who he truly was deep down on the inside. Some of us will react in a way because we want to impress men in our lives out of fear. Let me tell something to you women that are maybe watching. Most of my audience are men, but to the few women that are watching, men are scared. We're scared. Who do we fear the most? We don't fear women. Men are scared of men. It's true. I told this to one of my female homies. Men are scared of men. It's true. Because there may be points where a male may come to you, but then men are like, well, if you dress a certain way or if you act a certain way, then men think, oh my God, then I'm going to have to defend you, which means that I'm going to have to fight another man. Because they're scared of other men. They don't want to get into it with other men. Or they're afraid of what other men will think about them. Why do you think there's so many DL men out there? Why do you think there's so many men that are actually sexually fluid, but they don't want to admit it? Baby, this is a conversation. This is a whole conversation. Let's continue. The truth we do not tell is that men are longing for love. This is the longing feminist thinkers must dare to examine, explore, and talk about. Those rare visionary feminist seers who are now no longer all female are no longer afraid to openly address issues of men, masculinity, and love. Women have been joined by men with open minds and big hearts, men who love, men who know how hard it is for males to practice the art of loving in patriarchal culture. These are some of the men that are strong enough to be tender. And then they actually convey, well, this is how we all feel. It takes a lot of strength to be tender, to resist the need to be violent, the need to be hard-hearted and closed off and stoic. In part, I believe to write books about love because the constant fighting between my ex-boyfriend Anthony and myself. We were, and at the time of this writing still are, each other's primary bond. We came together hoping to create love and found ourselves creating conflict. We decided to break up, but even that did not bring an end to the conflict. The issues we fought about most had to do with the practice of love. Like so many men who know that the women in their lives want to hear them declare love, Anthony made those declarations. We asked to link the I love you words with definition and practice. He found that he did not really have the words. that he was fundamentally uncomfortable being asked to talk about emotions. Like many males, he had not been happy in most of the relationships he had chosen. The unhappiness of men in relationships, the grief men feel about the failure of love, often goes unnoticed in our society precisely because of the patriarchal culture really does not care if men are unhappy. When females are in emotional pain, the sexist thinking says that emotion should be and can matter to women, makes it possible for most of us to at least voice our heart, to speak it to someone, whether a close friend, a therapist, or stranger sitting next to us on a plane or a bus. Patriarchal mores teaches a form of emotional stoicism to men that says that they are more manly if they do not feel. But if by chance they should feel and the feelings hurt, the manly response is to stuff them down, to forget about them, to hope they go away. How many of us men hold everything in over and over and over and over until the point we blow up? Is that you? We don't express it right out. And then we wait for that one little itty bitty thing. And that'll be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And next thing you know, we're blowing up at somebody that we love. George Weinberg explains in Why Men Won't Commit. Most men are on a quest for the ready-made perfect woman because they basically feel the problem in a relationship can't be worked out. When the slightest thing goes wrong, it seems easier to bolt than talk. The masculine pretense is that real men feel no pain. Remember when I said that this system wants us to be robots? Robots don't have feelings. We need to change that. Men have feelings. We have hearts. We're not machines. We're men. We have emotions. That's something that is antithetical to the system. Patriarchy is also a tool of capitalism in order to keep us unfeeling, in order to keep us working like machines all the time, never stopping. The reality is that men are hurting and that the whole culture responds to them by saying, please do not tell us what you feel. I have always been a fan of the Sylvia cartoon where two women sit, one looking into a crystal ball as the other woman says, he never talks about his feelings. And then the woman who can see the future says, at 2 p.m. all over the world, men will begin to talk about their feelings, and women all over the world will be sorry. So it's not just us men being afraid to talk about our feelings and then other men judging us for it, but also the internalized patriarchy that exists within women, so that when we actually start talking about our feelings, then women go, oh, he's becoming more emotional and he's talking about his feelings. I don't like this. Are you prepared for an emotionally intelligent man? Uh. If we cannot heal, then we cannot feel. By supporting patriarchal culture that socializes men to deny feelings, we doom them to live in states of emotional numbness. We construct a culture where male pain can have no voice, where male hurt cannot be named or healed. It is not just men who do not take their pain seriously. Most women do not want to deal with male pain if it interferes with the satisfaction of female desire. I told you this was going to be deep. Bell Hooks ain't came to play. She came to slay. Mm, 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 mm. When feminist movement led to men's liberation, including male exploration of feelings. Some women mocked male emotional expression with the same disgust and contempt as sexist men. Despite all the expressed feminist longing for men of feeling, when men worked to get in touch with feelings, no one really wanted to reward them. In feminist circles, men who wanted to change were often labeled as narcissistic or needy. Individual men who expressed feelings were often seen as attention seekers, patriarchal manipulators trying to steal the stage with their drama. And that's it. That's what I'm reading today. Did you guys like the stream? Bell hooks did not come to play in this book. Baby, I cannot read the next one. We're going to get into it, but this was fire. What did you guys think? What did you guys think about some of the points that were in it? Man, I'm telling you. And here's the funny part, especially about men being angry. The thing is that why do a lot of us gay men get beat up, especially if we try to shoot our shot with another man who may be straight, right? They get mad at us because we actually have the guts to live out our lives, with courage. And because of the system of patriarchy, what ends up happening is they don't want to live out their lives because they're afraid of other men and how they may look at them. So therefore, if they somehow either express their desire for us back, or even if they're straight, if they respond in a more like, oh man, you think I'm handsome? Oh man, you think I'm sexy? Oh man, thank you so much. I'm flattered, but I'm straight, but I'm flattered. And if you say that, you'll get judged by other men. You'll get seen as, oh man, you taking that a little too nicely, bro. You sure you ain't got more food flavors than the lifesavers? As if being gay is bad. Here's another thing. Now, I understand a lot of people are talking about Cat Williams, and I totally understand a lot of people are talking about what he said on Club Shay Shay with Shannon Sharp. And there's this whole talk about in the black community about, well, there's a lot of black men out there who are wearing dresses in media, and so they're trying to emasculate black men. Never mind all the white men that actually also wore dresses in media, by the way. Never mind that. But also, if a man decides to wear a dress, how is that emasculating him? And if masculinity is on one side and femininity is on the other side, then that going towards femininity, why is that considered bad? Why is being feminine considered evil? Why do we demonize trans women more than we demonize trans men? Why is it always seen as a horrible thing when someone ventures towards being feminine, but it's not seen as terrible venturing towards being manly? Bell Hooks came to play. She came to slay. Boy, I cannot wait to get into this book even further. But if you guys have not, please make sure to give the stream a like, because we're going to be reading more of this book in the future. Also, just want to give a shout out to all the patrons on Patreon, Coffee, as well as, on who sends me any type of mutual aid through PayPal. Thank you so very much for joining as well. I really appreciate it. Without you guys, I would not be able to have this channel. It means the world to me. You know what? And I just want to thank all of you for tuning in. And oh, I forgot to look at this. Let me make sure I put this in here. JB. All right. And just want to thank you guys for tuning in. Let me go here as well, just to share. Oh, by the way, just to let you guys know, my channel's still demonetized. So if you guys would like to support the channel, you guys can go to Patreon or PayPal. So you guys can go either or. So thank you so very much for that. And let me share with you guys the tiers on Patreon, just so that you guys are aware of the Patreon tiers. So let me share that. Let's give a shout out to them. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm thugging it. All right. All right. So in the tiers, we have JB members, Solidarity, Comrades, Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, and Mega Jaybefaunters. And so thank you so very much. And I would like to give a new shout out to a new patron, She-Boss. Thank you so very much for becoming a patron on Patreon. It means the world to me. So thank you. All right, so let's go to the chat. We are going to look. I want to hear what y'all have to say. Kurt Boss is in here saying, hi there, Jay. Good to see you. Kurt Boss says, capitalism like Israel is the worst idea. Oh, man. Oh, man. Thank you so very much. All right. Black Unicorn Griffin says, love you. Love you back. All right. We have Colin in the chat. Hey, Colin from INN. JB with the orange shirt. Thank you so much. I decided to wear a little bit orange. Jacqueline coming in saying, hi, everyone. Good to see you, Jacqueline. Nice to have you as well. All right. We have Norman Kina. Board issues. Good to see you. Christopher is talking about, yes, men. Yeah, a lot of us are afraid. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so very much. Christopher also says, I'm going to watch all of these second reading and it's still hitting. Oh, you read it already? Cool, cool. Can't wait to hear from you and further. Jacqueline says, we not only demonize trans women, at the same time, we demonize radical feminists more than male transphobics. That's another one. Also, Black Unicorn Griffin says, tee-hee. Yep. Roger Meadows, thank you so very much for tuning in. Says, sounds like my relationship with my dad. He was there as a provider, but not there in terms of developing a bond. Ooh. Can we talk? Can we talk about that? How a lot of times our fathers are present as far as materially, but emotionally, it's like, were they really there? It's like, And can we also talk about how even when it comes to physical affection with fathers, once you reach a certain age, it's like a hug and a kiss doesn't happen anymore. It's like you start shaking your kid's hand. It's like, why did it stop? Like, why does it keep going with moms, but it stops with dads, right? Like, nah, bro. You gave birth to me. Hug me. Kiss me on my forehead. Tell me you love me. Right? Nah, we ain't stopping this. We ain't stopping this mess up when I turn 8. No. Right here. Forehead. Give me a kiss on the forehead. Give me a hug. Nah, bro, we ain't stopping that. My heart does not stop, or it does not get harder at that age if you do not allow it to happen. Why is it only my mom? Like, no, we got to turn this stuff back. This generational stuff, because a lot of times when You got women who go, oh man, men aren't men anymore. You're aching for those emotionally repressed men who went to war, who suffer PTSD, that are now coming back, that are stoic, emotionally repressed, that don't even want to hug or be affectionate with their kids anymore. So now you're internalizing that with your Stockholm syndrome ass, going, oh man, I want men to be manly again. But then at the same time, now we're being more expressive with our feelings. We're now starting to be more warmer as men. And now some of y'all going, well, he wasn't as stoic as my father went. Meanwhile, you didn't know that your daddy was probably beating your mama's ass back in the day. And your mama didn't even know. I mean, you didn't even know that your mom was being beat or emotionally abused. Your dad probably didn't put his hands on her, but he probably used words that cut her deep. Are we going to talk about it? You want a man to be men again? Men never stop being men. We never stopped. We're just using our heart more. The older generations, most men had to go to war because we had the draft. Now, because most men have the option to not join military service, a lot of us aren't burned by war anymore. We're not burned like that. So we're not the stoic, just, I'm a man. We're now more warmer now. Because that's what men always were. We always were that way. We just didn't allow the capitalist system to force us to go fight their wars for the benefits of corporations. I think that's something that we need to talk about. My grandfather, step-grandfather technically, was a veteran. My uncle, veteran, right? Now, there's a lot of men that see military service. We're like, hell no. Because we see what damage it does to us. Especially on behalf of these corporations. Hell no. No. But we're also not damaged as much by them. Emotionally. Jacqueline says, I don't know if this was typical of dads, but my dad hugged me once in my whole life. Perhaps this inability to express emotion is a result of my granddad's experience of going to war. Maybe. Roger Meadows says, I guess with black men, we see dressing up as a form of backbreaking harkens back to slavery. Hollywood coercion is the worst, using promises of career elevation, but plummets if you don't go along. I understand that too. But that's also with a lot of industry too. Because they also want you to use your bodies and break your back in every industry just for their benefit. But I understand what you mean. Jacqueline says perhaps there was so much generational trauma from World War I and II that it trickled down throughout the ages. Yeah. So this book was amazing. I cannot wait to read it more in the future. If you guys want to, I'll probably try to do another reading Thursday-ish. I'll probably try to do that. But, of course, it will be pre-recorded. So, but, whenever I do a new book, I like to go live, do a live reading. And so, just so that I can share my excitement with you guys, too. Roger says, my dad was of silent, mature, though, so I understand. Yeah, that was a lot of men, particularly. You mean Silent Generation? Because I forget the generational names, but I think my grandfather was that too. But yeah, so it's a lot to go through, man, and we have to be better than the last generation. So, but also thank you so much to everybody for joining in. If you guys have not, we're also raising funds through Orlando Mutual Aid Group. If you guys would like to contribute, you guys can go to $ Orlando RBN on Cash App. We're raising money for grocery gift cards, and toiletries primarily. So thank you so very much for that. Also, I will be continuing the reading of Laziness Does Not Exist as well. I cannot believe we're well past the halfway point. So we're going to be getting into reading that later this week. So I cannot wait. And look, we're learning and we're growing on this channel. And I thank you so very much. I understood you already, Roger. Yeah, I got you, bro. All right. So thank you so very much to everybody for tuning in. Look, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, then watch something funny, because joy is revolutionary. Reading is fundamental. So thank you so very much to everybody. Look, I love you all for watching. And look, remember, be more compassionate, be more kind, be more loving. And guys, men, if it means being more compassionate, if it means being more kind, who cares what other dudes think? Just be it, because ultimately it's going to help keep the world going, and it's going to make the world a better place. You have hammers. They can be used to destroy, or they can be used to rebuild. Use that hammer to build, and not just build better systems, but build people up, because that's what we're good at. Love you for watching. Mwah! Forehead kisses to every single one of you. Take care and have a beautiful Sunday. Deuces, Bruces.